The views expressed in this interview are not necessarily those of the host and solely represent our guest at the time of recording. Thank you for listening and watching.
This is Somewhere in the Skies with Ryan Sprague.
All right, welcome to a in-studio episode of Somewhere in the Skies. This happens so rarely. Welcome, guys. I'm your host, Ryan Sprague, and with me today is the one and only Paul Kimball.
Hi, Mom. I'm normally I wear baseball caps today. I'm wearing a New York Knicks cap, which is the only New York cap I have, Ryan, because I generally hate New York sports teams, and it's been a tough week for Ryan.
It has.
Yankees lost the World Series to a team that had just beat Ryan's beloved Mets. And the Jets lost last week, and the Giants always lose. So the only good news I have for you is it's a new basketball season. The Knicks are back, and the Jets won last night. As we're recording this, they went to 3 wins and 6 losses for the season.
Okay, so we're doing okay. So it would probably not surprise you that when it comes to New York teams, I'm often a contrarian. So my New York team is actually the Nets.
Oh, for Pete's sake.
Come on. You know by now.
Well,
I always have to pick the underdog.
Nashville it is.
Boom,
So
boom. I love
Nashville.
Well, okay. Let's start with ghost hunting, Paul. Before we even get into the core of this conversation, we have spent the last, month and a half together, almost every second of every day.
This is illogical. This is a UFO show. Why are we talking?
Because we just did like 5 ghost episodes, and my audience is probably craving UFOs, which we will get to. We will definitely get to for sure. But
spooky ghosts.
We just spent the last month and a half all over Nova Scotia hunting ghosts. Season 13.
I've come to hate you. And he's come to hate me. We've come to hate each other. We've been living out of each other's back pockets, really.
We really have. How do you feel wrapping season 13 of Haunted?
Dude, I'm retired. So it's not just wrapping season 13. I am a retired ghost hunter. I'm still producing Haunted, and I'll edit and write it and everything. But the field work I leave to a younger generation, unless I return someday. But it was a good season. Yeah, I mean, ghosts. We were talking in the car, why did I give up UFOs all those years ago? And 2 reasons, folks. Ghosts, cheddar, I get paid to do it. But also, you can go out and have personal experiences, which is what we do. We go to all these places where almost all of them the general public can go. We were speaking, Ryan and I went to Lunenburg, Nova Scotia last night to give a Halloween talk to little kiddies and about ghosts and demons. Mom, I'm sorry. It's not what you and Dad wanted me to become, but here we are.
Ghosts good,
demons bad.
Yes,
that
is our slogan.
Depending on how they look, if it's a friendly demon, maybe. It's like you can go to these places, walk in. I was telling the story. My wife and I went to Whaley House in San Diego. I don't know, just before the pandemic. My wife not really having any interest in ghosts other than Paul gets a paycheck so we can buy things with what he earns from hunting ghosts. But so we're at Whaley House, allegedly the most haunted house in all of the United States, or one of them, and a really great museum too. It's in Old Town San Diego. So she did the museum part. I said, you don't want to stand here? I'm just going to stand and see if I can feel some ghosty stuff. And she went, no, I'm good. And so she walked into the next room, and I stood there, and it was all of a sudden I felt like I was being enveloped in cold, which is, you might have discovered, is a move that ghosts make. And it was like 90 degrees in San Diego, so probably not cold. And she stuck her head out the door, and she was thinking, like, are you done? And I went, I'm in a cocoon of cold. And she said, yeah, I'll be upstairs. It's just like wanted nothing to do with it. She said, whenever you're done, leave him alone, and we're getting dinner, right? So what we do is we go to these places, and we've had Ryan for the last 3 seasons, which has been, how would you describe it? Fascinating. Yes,
Ooh.
actually, awesome, man. Yeah, it's been great, and we do stuff. So Ryan's been turned into a Ouija board savant.
Yeah, it's we talked about this in Lunenburg last night. You know, nothing I ever thought I would do in my life, try to be on a Ouija board. And I will admit, and yes, we will get to UFOs, guys, but it is Halloween season still. Jacob, our co-investigator on the show, he and I were very skeptical of the Ouija board
Yes,
and nervous. You know, we thought we were both going to get on there and nothing was going to happen. And that's the worst thing that can happen on television, right?
it's not the worst thing, but
I
it's-
guess that's true.
It's
Yeah.
in the top 5. Yeah,
Yeah. One of us could get possessed. Actually, that'd be really good for television.
I was thinking somebody gets electrocuted because there's lights and rain on the floor or something. and-
Yeah.
yeah, that's the worst thing that could happen.
That's so true. But we, you know, right off the bat, we had incredible results on the Ouija board. Of course, all of this stuff, guys, is always open to interpretation. No one's an expert in any of it, but we have sort of coined ourselves the Ouija bros,
Mhm.
as it were, because we work so well together. And we've had some pretty stunning results so far, would you say?
Yeah. Although I think the best thing was because I knew it was my last season in the field after 13 seasons plus a previous series called Ghost Cases. I've never been a big fan of the Ouija. Long story, doesn't matter. I'm very skeptical of it too. Not skeptical of them. So when you see people, I do believe that the Ouija can serve as a portal or an opening, or basically, hi, come on down and use this to whatever. But I'm very skeptical of the people who use it. There are fakes and frauds and all that stuff. You and Jacob, no. So you and I, so it's a ghost show, but on other ghost shows, and I'm looking at you, Zach Baggins, we don't just go hunt demons and stuff. We have fun, folks.
Yeah.
So we conjure creatures. And last season, season 12, we conjured up a quantum Sasquatch.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Lauren Coleman, that was for you. This season, Ryan and I were on an island called Briar Island in Nova Scotia, which is literally in World War Z. If you've ever seen World War Z, this is where Brad Pitt and everybody ends up at the end of the zombie apocalypse. They go to Briar Island because it is at the end of everything.
Yeah.
And so we were on Briar Island staying there, and we went on this, the Great Bog Marsh Trail, or whatever it's called, lovely trail. And we may or may not have sat down and conjured up a creature that does not exist until now that we call the Bog Squatch, which great, a lot of fun.
It really was.
But then we took the ferry over to Long Island, which was where we were actually filming. So it's like a 5-minute ferry ride with the car. And we went to the museum and we did a Ouija session, just you and me. And we might have actually talked to the Bog Squatch,
That was crazy.
who has 3 mates apparently.
Apparently,
That's how Bog Squatches roll.
Bog Squatches roll polygamously.
They
Is that a
do.
word?
I think they might be polygamous, or they're, you know what? They just believe in free love.
Oh, I love that.
There you go.
So clearly, originally birthed in the 60s or 70s.
Yes,
I would assume.
Yes, but
Yeah.
is it a real Bog Squatch? I don't know. Although I do think we might have conjured a quantum Sasquatch, because you know what? I feel like I'm hosting your own show. This is terrible. Only for the ghost portion. Ryan, tell us about the quantum Sasquatch experience when you were sitting in a hut or a building at Camp Harrison, old Boy Scout camp with no record of Sasquatches, and doing an Estes Method ghost box session.
Yeah.
And Holly Stevens, one of the co-hosts or investigators, I guess is a better way, saw something, and I think maybe you did too.
Yeah.
Out a window. So you describe what you saw.
Okay.
And then I'll deliver the punchline, because I was the guy that did the punchline.
Right. So all I remember is we're in this cabin, and this was after we had quote unquote summoned what we believe was a quantum Sasquatch. Sounds ridiculous, but again, like, we are hunting ghosts for a month. We got to have some fun. We got to try stuff, try experiments. And we did. And what may have started as a joke, as it did with Bog Squatch, as we'll get to, started to get serious when other investigators actually started seeing things and experiencing things. So like you mentioned, we use the Estes method, which is headphones, sweeps through frequencies. You pick out words if they come through and you hear them. And supposedly this is a spirit trying to communicate with you. Holly, one of our, I would say, more scientifically based investigators, was under the Estes. And I watched her focus go to a window that was right behind me, and her eyes just started moving and watching something go past the window. She kind of jumped back. She said, "There's something in the window." So I quickly turned around, and I too saw a form. You could call it a shadow. I don't know. The head of it, like, go right past the window, like something had run past the cabin that we were in, perhaps watching us, perhaps hunting us. I don't know, but it was very troubling. We saw it with our very own eyes, and freaked us out. So I remember we stopped doing what we were doing because it was very unsettling. And you came in and you were like, "Hey guys, what's going on?" And I'll
Right.
let you take it from there.
Because I had been in another part of it's a big Boy Scout camp, so I was well off with Amy Murphy, one of our other investigators, and we were doing some really goofy stuff, which like rolling cat balls and saying, "Come interact with us, Sasquatch," and spirits of the forest, and tried some time travel too, because Amy and I had shot a feature film there like 20 years before, so we were trying to reach out to our younger selves. Weirdly enough, through the ghost box came my name more than once, and bank, which is a very significant word in terms of the feature film that we saw. So it was one of a couple of words, 2 of like 4 words we said, if that comes through, that might be past us coming to future us. Anyway, it was a totally weird thing. And later on, Ryan and Holly heard knocking in the woods from the Sasquatch.
Yeah.
And we left a gift for the Sasquatch overnight, came back the next day, and he had left gifts for us. Like,
This was like
nobody else knew we had done that. Nobody was back to that place while we
Right.
were away. I mean,
so remote. Yeah.
So we were tulpamancering, or Nick Redfern kind of like conjure a tulpa or a thought form. So anyhow, I come back and I go, "Hey guys, what went on?" And they tell me about the names. Well, oh my God. And then, we saw this thing go through a window, kind of like that window right back there. And I said, "That window?" And they went, "Yeah, that window." Like, "Was that you, Paul?" Because they thought, certainly Holly had thought that I had, not trying to prank them, but maybe I had just walked by,
Right.
or I was in the
It
neighborhood.
happens all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. No, we were nowhere near it. There was nobody else there. But here's the thing. I said, I immediately knew. I said, "Hey, camera monkey, come out with me." I had one of our camera guys, Jeff McCullum, follow me, and came out, went around. And so the hut, so here's what it looks like. Now, one side, though, the hill's here, and the other side, the ground's down here. They were over on this side, looking out a window on this side. If you go out this side and you look up, that window's 8 to 9 feet above the ground. Anything going by that window would have been at least 7, it'd be like Yao Ming height at a minimum. And probably, the Boston Celtics or the New York Knicks want to get this guy, because it was about 8 to 9 feet. And I'm just looking up going, I think we just conjured an effing, I didn't say effing, Sasquatch at Camp Harris in Mineville, my old Boy Scout camp when I was a kid, which is crazy if it happened. And if that was the only thing, you'd be like, well, okay, but all this other stuff that went on, like the cat ball would light up here. And then you guys heard knocks in the woods, and Amy and I, we were woo woo making Sasquatch sounds as a joke. And then we heard the sounds come back to us, and they were unlike any animal sound. Amy and I have lived our whole lives in Nova Scotia that we had ever heard. So we followed. And then when we get up there, we heard footsteps next to us. Did we see a Sasquatch? No, except maybe they did. I don't know. Did we conjure one? I don't know. But we tried it again with the bog squatch that we created. We didn't just conjure. We went next level, right?
Yes.
Next level.
Yep.
And we created one. And then on the Ouija board, it interacted with us for a good solid half an hour. Like,
yes. And
the thing was spinning around, and
gosh,
like,
that was crazy.
"Are you a bog squatch?" "Yes, nice to meet you." It liked being called Sir Bog Squatch. It had a bit of a sense of humor. So to my old friend Mac Tonys, who's sadly passed away 15 years ago, he would appreciate it, the idea of a trickster. So do I think we really dealt with it? And this relates, look, I'm going to bring it back. This relates to UFOs. And one possible explanation for UFOs and some of the really high strangeness cases are tricksters, or what you call them, tricksters. Other people use different names for them, that have interacted with human beings throughout all of our history and present themselves to us in different guises, maybe to have some fun with us, maybe to teach us something, maybe they want to learn something from us. Or as Greg Bishop would say, and I always like to give credit, sort of an artistic co-creation, which I talked about in my book, The Other Side of Truth, now available on wherever you get books. But the idea of an artistic relationship between us and the paranormal, where we're basically kind of painting a Jackson Pollock together.
Yeah.
And it's just like a blank canvas when you go in, but if you open yourself up to it, let the spirit move you, kind of thing.
Right.
Artists will sometimes talk like that. Like, Paul McCartney would say, well, I don't know where the song came from. It just came.
Yeah,
to me.
something takes over.
Well, I just opened myself up and wiggly biggly I had yesterday.
Right.
Or whatever. So we do like actual ghost hunting that you would see Zach Baggins do, I guess.
Yeah.
But we do all sorts of weird stuff that you won't see them do. And that's, to me, where the fun always was. Because after 13 seasons, there's only so many times you can walk in and go, all right, not turn the Ouija board on.
Click.
We have an electric Ouija board. Turn the ghost box on.
Yeah.
Let's, ask the same questions and see what we get. The Ouija board was definitely different, and tulpum answering is different, and all sorts of cool stuff. So yeah. And that is the second reason why I sort of walked away or left UFOs, besides the dirty, filthy lucre, is you can do this stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas you never hear anybody kind of do it in UFOs. I mean, I suppose you could go out and invite the UFOs down if they're paranormal.
Yeah.
Yes. In fact, we tried that in season 12.
We did.
And we got Stanton Friedman through the Ouija board. Like,
of course.
I will return to Somewhere in the Skies if Ryan wants me when that episode is done. And we can talk about how my uncle Stan Friedman came through the Ouija board at a place he had no connection to.
Yeah.
While Jacob and Ryan and answered questions that I asked that those two would not have known the answers to.
Non-related UFO questions, UFO information that I, even as a 20-something year veteran now, did not know, which is my own fault. But hey, it sort of proves the experiment. I mean, these are things that only you and Stan would know. And that was I would imagine, extremely emotional for you, but for me too. Like, I met him once in my entire time. I interviewed him maybe twice, but that was one of the hardest days for every UFO researcher out there, to lose who we considered, sort of the godfather or the father of ufology. And yeah, for those who don't know, Paul is his nephew.
Yeah, for me, I just lost an uncle and a good friend, but also a Dodgers fan, right? So sorry about that.
That's okay.
But he went back to Brooklyn. He was a Dodgers fan from when he grew up in New Jersey. Right. So he was a Brooklyn Dodgers fan, and he just transferred his loyalty when they moved to Los Angeles. So he's still a New Yorker.
I love that, though. Stan, you finally got that World Series, my man.
So was it Stan talking to us, or was it a trickster? I'd like to think it was Stan, but we've done that with Mac Tony's. We were in a place called the Queens County Museum a few years ago, and Ryan and was it you, Micah Hanks, Greg Bishop, and I was there, and Dylan Garland, I think, was there too. Yes, who was on the Haunted team at the time, and we were just trying to contact Mac Tony's, and Mac ran a blog called Post-Human Blues. So blue was his color, and he loved, and this will sound really creepy and weird, folks, but he loved mannequins. He was fascinated by mannequins. He would take pictures of them whenever he saw them, even creepy ones, sexy ones, whatever. He was fascinated by mannequins. So we wind up in this attic at the Queens County Museum, which is one of the more haunted places I've ever investigated.
Very haunted.
And so the conference we were at was just doing a ghost hunt there, because the lady, Linda Rayfuse, who ran the conference, also runs the museum. It's a provincial museum. And we're up there in this tight sort of space. And Mac is something has been leading us up here. And we're filming it on cell phones or whatever. And a REM pod, which is a device that lights up and it measures all sorts of different things, temperature, it doesn't matter what it measures. Flashy lights, as I say, ghost science. And there's a mannequin with no head. And I think it was me or Greg. I can't remember, but I think I came up with the idea, and I think maybe Greg put it there. It's like, hey, let's put the REM pod, which has been beep, 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 answering our questions, everything. Let's put it on top of the mannequin. And if the blue light comes on, because it has green and red and blue, and stays on, that can't happen. What are the odds that that's going to happen? Stood back. Hey, Mac, are you here? Beep. And there's the blue light coming on. I don't know if that's Mac Tony's or a trickster, or in Mac's case, he's a bit of both. But there's something out there that's interacting with us. I know skeptics out there that are listening, assuming you have some, and I am still skeptical about any given incident. I just, like, there's coincidences in this world, and then there's synchronicities, and then there's things I just can't explain, and it doesn't make sense. So Blog Squatch, Block Squatch, sorry.
Block Squatch.
I'm calling it Blog Squatch. Bog Squatch and Sasquatch and Mac Tonys and Stan Friedman, two of which relate to UFOs. So there we are. We're back to UFOs. Coming through on our ghost hunting journey. Well, welcome to Haunted, and we're glad that you're aboard. Hopefully, you've enjoyed your time.
Oh my gosh, I'm having a blast, and it's been extremely eye-opening. It is a big departure from the UFO world, where, like you said, oftentimes a UFO is so fleeting. It's here, it's gone. There's no way to measure it, to capture it, to really study it if you want to go from the scientific route. But when it comes to ghost hunting, like, we have created tools where we can possibly
recreate it.
Yeah.
You can try and recreate it, and then you can take people out, put new people in, see if you can replicate. So we don't do science. I have a law degree and a history degree. Holly does have a science degree, but we at least try and do a little bit of science, or at least a little bit of the scientific method, just a tidge, without claiming that we're ghost scientists or anything like that. It is all very subjective. And but the great thing is, you folks, you, Ed, Susan, Philip, Pete. Pete.
Oh, Pete's here.
Well, Pete's here. Amazing.
What's up, Pete?
Hey, Pete. Yo, what's up? Oh my God, Bog Squatch is here. Look, he's right down there.
Oh my gosh. All right, everyone behave.
But you guys can do it too. And wherever we go, the episodes for the first 4 seasons, which Ryan was not in, are on YouTube. But all the other seasons, the next 9 seasons, will be up over the next year and a half. So eventually you'll be able to see them on YouTube after they do the broadcast here in Canada. And if you're in the neighborhood, you can go to most of these places, or you can go to Whaley House in San Diego, or you can go to whatever is the haunted place near you, and have your own experience. Just open it up, open yourself up to it. My last word is, I describe it like going to a movie. And this works with UFOs too, I think. As much as I've made fun of Stephen Greer over the years, and I have, with good reason, although a very polite man when I interviewed him years ago. So there's that.
Good to know.
But he does that contact thing, and you go out and shine flashlights and stuff. Yeah. But the truth is, I wouldn't do it with Stephen Greer because he's going to charge you, but you can do that. I would recommend New Mexico or some deserted state where there's a clear night sky. But, maybe you can go out and make contact with whatever's out there. But it's like going to a movie. You're not going to experience anything, even have the chance to experience anything, I don't think, unless you are open to it in some way, shape, or form, which is like putting your money down, buying your ticket, and say, I want to go see Rise of Skywalker for the 12th time. Which,
oh gosh,
you deserve what you get then. So,
there's a special place down there for those who have to watch that movie that many
hanging
times.
out with Bog Squatch.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Enough about ghosts.
You started it.
I did. I really did. We had to. Let's move to what people want to hear about truly, and that's UFOs, Paul. Top 5. People love lists. You go to any website or any YouTube channel, and they're always doing top 10 this, top 10 that. Today, we're going to do Paul Kimball's personal top 5 favorite UFO cases. We discussed whether we should do top 5 most documented or top 5 most favorite. I want my audience to get to know you more, so we decided to go with favorite.
No, no, you don't.
Bad idea.
You don't want to get to know me.
Okay,
that's bad, man. That's what they say about me in ufology. So I did a film in 2007. I did a number of docs about UFOs for Canadian and New Zealand television, weirdly enough, years ago, before I became famous for other things. I don't know, ghost hunting and feature films. And I did a film called Best Evidence Top 10 UFO Cases, and some of which I actually think have been explained to my satisfaction, a couple of which I don't believe in. 2 of those will wind up on my little favorite because I still think they're great cases.
Okay.
And 2 of them are I still consider them unexplained. But I wanted to do a favorite list because I don't want to talk about evidence too much. There's a couple of points I'd like to make as I return to ufology for like an hour and then run away screaming again. Until I see a chandelier UFO or something. Oof. And
too soon.
No, it's not too soon. It's not too soon. I'm burning it down.
Chandelier. Is that the song?
Yeah, I could. Everybody who might know me from like 15 years ago is going, yeah, we didn't miss him. He's the skunk at the garden party.
Yeah.
What was it? Jacques Vallée. I always liked Heretic Amongst Heretics. I like that.
Well, who did he say that about?
I think he said it about himself.
Oh,
So I
okay.
kind of like saying it about myself too.
A self-proclaimed
Heretic
heretic.
amongst heretics. I think that was valet.
Interesting.
So 2 of them are in that film, which
Okay.
is you can see for free on YouTube. It's still there.
Yeah,
There's a couple of other cases, like the Tehran UFO case, that I still think are interesting.
that's my favorite.
There's I don't know if there's any. Rendlesham's on that list. I don't think Rendlesham is a particularly good case anymore. I didn't even really back then.
Ooh. I might want to circle back to that.
You can circle back to that, and
Yeah.
I can explain why.
Okay.
It's not the worst case ever. So.
Yeah.
But do you just want me to tell you my list?
Let's do it. Let's go.
How do you
Let's
wanna do
go.
this?
I guess descending order.
I don't know if they're in order. Let me think about this.
Yeah,
Because
whichever. It doesn't matter.
the Hopkinsville Goblins case is on it, and it's got goblins.
Oh my god.
So
let's start with goblins.
how is that number 1?
Yeah. Tell us about why.
Oh, Spocko, you look like a goblin. Would you like to describe this case?
Please do it. Oh my
Sure.
gosh.
Sal,
You
wait.
got to stay committed to this.
I can't commit to my role. He's an
Okay.
actor. I can't commit. Okay, no, I can't do it. Spocko.
All right. We'll get Paul Kimball to do it. Hello.
Yeah.
Is that
Sorry.
how you
Wait. Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
If you're watching this on YouTube, we're doing the Vulcan.
Total Star Trek nerds.
Is that Live Long and Prosper?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. Live
Okay.
long and
Oh
prosper.
gosh, am I going to get copyright strike for this?
Yes. No. Or sorry, we're
That's our gang
we're
sign.
Zoidberg from Futurama too.
Yeah.
Or those are the Zoidberg claws.
All right,
so-
goblins.
So why do I like certain UFO cases? 2 of them are going to be because I think they're really good cases. A couple others because there's a point to make, and I think that's important. The Hopkinsville Goblins case is just a cool case. I don't actually think it was UFOs and aliens and goblins, although it might well have been. The explanation of a couple of great horned owls or something like that some guys out in the woods drinking, which and a comet flying over. Like, there's an explanation that you could probably piece together, and maybe that's what it was, or maybe it was bog squatch, or something like. Just weird stuff happens, folks.
Right.
So anyway, it was August 1955. Oh, the other reason why I like this goes back to why I like ghost hunting, because you can go to these places. So my wife and I were in Nashville, Tennessee last year, and she loves, to the point where she would divorce me if the opportunity arose for her to marry Rick Springfield. She loves Rick Springfield. I love Rick Springfield, not in the same way, but I love his music too. So we were down there to see Rick Springfield play at the Ryman Auditorium, like the center of country music in Nashville. And great show, by the way, Rick. Awesome. But I didn't have a condition, but she said, look, I know you love Rick Springfield too, but if you want to do something, like, what would you like to do today? And I said, well, we're going to get in the car and we're taking a drive. And she went, oh, awesome. Where are we going? Some scenic road or something? I said, yeah, sure. So turns out it's not that far from Nashville. I think it's like an hour and a half to Hopkinsville, Kentucky. So I said, I'm going to this place, Hopkinsville, Kentucky. And she went, oh, what's in Hopkinsville? And I went, there's a museum there, and I want to go to the museum. Oh, well, okay. Is there anything else? No, not really. It's a sort of sadly, it's not a dying town, but it's a town that has seen better days. Lovely people. But so she's like, why? And I said, well, you'll know when we get there. So I get there. I mean, it's not a tourist town, folks. I'll just be honest. But the museum is very nice. There's a lovely museum there. They have some great Civil War exhibits, some paranormal guy. I can't remember who it is, but like a psychic or something was centered. I could look it up, centered there. Doesn't matter. The Hopkinsville Goblins case is profiled in the museum. And I wanted to go to the museum to see the Hopkinsville Goblins exhibit.
Oh, wow.
It's not all that big, but it's kind of cool. And they have a little, I'll send you the picture, and maybe it's appearing over Ryan's head right now. I don't know what he's going to do, but there's a picture of me. I won't give you my wife's picture, but it's next to the Hopkinsville Goblin, the little thing. There's graffiti around the town on the walls that have like the little goblins.
Oh,
and
that's
stuff.
so cool.
Totally cool. So I wrote for Alien Worlds magazine, which was a magazine about 15 years ago out of the UK. Great magazine. And I sort of had my 7 ufological wonders of the world. I should have put Hopkinsville on it. Like the Rendlesham Trail was on it.
Okay.
Roswell is clearly on it. I mean, certain things that you want to go see. The Integratron and Giant Rock.
Of course.
In the contactee movement. But Hopkinsville kind of has that feel. So I love UFO tourism, and Hopkinsville is great. So the case itself the two families out in the woods,
Mhm.
and they basically take a few pot shots at what they think are goblins attacking them. And the skeptics say they're barn owls, and that the people were drunk, and maybe some say the military investigated it, some say it was the army, some say it was the Air Force, the police somehow got involved. You folks can look up the details.
Yeah.
But I love the case because it is a real. I know Greg Bishop does too. He first introduced me to it. I love folklore. I'm an historian at heart. This is just a cool piece of Americana from the 1950s when people were growing up and Sputnik was going overhead and
Mhm.
the space race was happening and nuclear weapons were out. Movies were coming about, creatures that were deformed like Godzilla or whatever, and crab people and stuff. And everybody's like, there was I hate the term paradigm, so it wasn't a paradigm, but there was a real shift. The end of the Second World War was a total shift. Dropping nukes, coming up, unlocking the atom changes everything. And within 20 years, almost we're on the moon. Yes, we did go to the moon, folks. For some of you that don't buy
Yes, you've heard it here.
So that you can look throughout human history and go, okay, hold on. They were still using horses in the Second World War, and 25 years later, we had men walking on the moon.
That's insane.
That kind of jump. So in that kind of environment, all sorts of stuff, crazy stuff is happening. And it really is the golden days of UFOs, but also everything from Gray Barker and Jim Moseley and all those guys with the Men in Black, all sorts of great stuff. I mean, I'll dump the Men in Black in with the Hopkinsville goblins because I think it's all part and parcel of the same mythology.
Yeah.
And I think if you ignore, and I used to, when I started in ufology, I was, very serious. We need scientific study and blah, 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 blah. Contactees, crazy stories like the Hopkinsville goblins, Men in Black. No, that's the good stuff.
Yeah.
That's the fun stuff. That's the interesting stuff that actually ties in maybe with ghost hunting or folklore and just human history. So did they see goblins? I don't know. Maybe. Or they saw something maybe paranormal. I wouldn't say alien. I would say maybe paranormal. Did having a few beers help them conjure it? Maybe. But you know what? Altered states of consciousness. I don't know.
Right.
Did they take a few shots at it? Absolutely. There's no question. Because it's rural Kentucky. They'd still do that, I think, today. But you can go to the museum. I would recommend you do it in Hopkinsville. Lovely museum, nice town, some good burger joints. But you have that sort of, it's like being on the old Route 66, right?
Yeah.
Like that part of America is gone, or not gone. It's still there, but it's often forgotten. Republicans versus Democrats or whatever they're fighting about. It's like, you know what? There was a time when we could all agree that freaking goblins in the woods in Kentucky were cool.
Yeah.
No matter what they were. So I would like to think that somewhere out there, the goblins are still there. And someday they will come back and unite us, either under a Trump or Harris presidency, whichever way it's going to go. And the election's in a couple of days when we record this. It's November 2nd, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. And just go, you think Trump's scary? We're goblins. We're actual goblins from hell.
But we're reaching across the aisle.
But that kind of folklore, I think, is fundamentally important to ufology.
Yes,
you ignore it at your risk. The weirdness, as Valet would say, the high strangeness. As I went through and looked, you can look, and there's a serious case or two on here. But as you look at yes, pilots, blah, 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 blah. Leslie Kean, UFOs and pilots and all that. Yeah, good for you. Goblins, Men in Black. Like there's weird, can we swear in your show?
Absolutely.
There's weird shit out there, folks. And the UFO field has a lot of hoaxers, a lot of fakers, and a lot of things that have been Jonathan Reed and all that stuff that have been whatever. But there's genuinely weird cases. And one of the things about Hopkinsville, the skeptics said, some skeptics said hoax. And the official line from the authorities at least seemed to be, we don't really see any sign of a hoax. Misidentification maybe. These people don't seem to be hoaxing anything.
Yeah.
So cool case, great case. I've nattered on about it long enough, but I love it because it's got goblins. It's part of Americana. That's important.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. That's such a perfect case to start with.
Goblins can unite us all.
Goblins. Who would have thought? I'm going to make that a t-shirt.
Goblins unite.
Always thinking. All right.
It's true.
Let's move to number 4. What is our
they're not in order.
Oh, okay.
So I'll go down. Number 4, June 1959. They call it the Father Gil case, which is why I want to talk about it.
Oh.
The I think it's Papua New Guinea case. Frankly, just New Guinea. We'll go with New Guinea. And so a missionary, I think he was an Anglican or Church of England missionary, Episcopalian, I think, but he's a missionary in New Guinea, and 25 locals, including, well, I won't spoil the punchline, but including medical techs and teachers. So why I want to talk about this case is because of cultural bias.
Okay.
And I spoke about that years ago at the Retro UFO Con in Landers. So has anybody ever wondered why the vast overwhelming majority of UFO cases seem to be reported from Western societies, and certainly the ones we take seriously?
Right. Everyone always says that, but no one ever has an answer as to why. I'm curious why.
We're biased.
Okay.
Like, I don't want to say we're bigoted, but we're biased. We have an inherent built-in cultural bias that, even if we don't like to admit it, I'm a liberal, small L liberal, good liberals, progressives, whatever we are, oh, we're enlightened and everything. Well, the third world, so, Father Gil, well, he's one of us. So, okay, we have one good witness. And then we have 25 others who are local, or as many people at the time referred to them, natives.
Different time.
In a what was still then a colonial territory. So good case, because multiple witnesses see over, I think it was 2 nights, the glowing circular object in the sky with portals and humanoid figures on the thing. And it's just like, okay, that's a pretty good case with anything with multiple witnesses. But Donald Menzel,
I haven't heard that name in a while.
Stan's arch enemy. Like, look, I like debunkers. Stan was a debunker. Bob Lazar, who is bunk. Stan debunked Bob Lazar. So there's nothing wrong with being a debunker on a case-by-case basis. But if you're just a debunker out to debunk everything without really giving it due consideration, cough, cough, Donald Menzel, cough, cough, then, okay, let's take a look at your debunking. And so he said, well, this case is basically, and you can find this on the internet, I'm paraphrasing, this case is basically, we had one, I'm just going to say it, folks, we had one white dude and we had a bunch of natives who viewed him as a holy man. So of course they were inclined to believe whatever he told them. You immediately strip the agency away from these sentient human beings, right, who, while perhaps not having a university degree from wherever Gil went to university, are still not, like Neanderthals, and their own observations, their own beliefs. Now, you can take into account that maybe because Gil was a bit of an authority figure, that can play into it a little bit, but to just, I don't want to use the term whitewash, but to just whitewash it and say, well, because he was their holy man and their guru, like Menzel said, clearly, this case can be discounted. And then, okay, no, 25 human beings, and I believe it was 25, including teachers. Like, if you really want to get into, well, were they all, just, again, this is not me, folks, but, uneducated, illiterate, stupid natives. They weren't. Even if you believe that, teachers, medical technicians, and yes, some local villagers, fine, they all have agency.
Yeah.
But we look at the case and they literally call it the Father Gil case. That's what it's called.
Right. Yeah. Why
the Father Gil case? He was one of 26 witnesses.
Yeah.
Now, he's the one that the media picked on, and he continued to talk about it for some time. Fair. But 26 witnesses, I think it was 26. Only one of them was Father Gil. Why don't we just call it the New Guinea case?
Right.
We don't call Roswell the Mac Brazel case.
Yeah.
We call it the Roswell case because it had multiple witnesses for good and ill. But New Guinea, it's the Father Gil case.
Interesting.
And then Menzel's other crazy explanation, it comes up with the explanation like, oh, well, it could have been Venus, which is possible, by the way. People misidentify Venus as UFOs.
All the time. Yeah.
Gil had eyeglasses and he wasn't wearing them, and stigmatization in his eyes and everything. And, Hynek, I think it was Hynek, went through and said, no, actually, they did talk about Venus. They specifically ruled it out. Gil didn't ignore it. He said, no, that's not what it is. And he had his glasses on, kind of thing. Like, just skeptics, just not skeptics. Skeptics good, debunkers bad. And debunkers aren't necessarily bad, like Stan debunking Lazar, but guys like Menzel were, and there's still a few today that continue to be. Every time I see Neil deGrasse Tyson, who I like, he's a smart scientist, but when I see him start talking about UFOs, I get it, because you have to deal with guys talking about chandelier UFOs. I understand your gut reaction about but take a step back and view each case, each person, each witness, each guru, if you want, like Luel Zonda, whatever. View them each individually and take their claims as an individual. Don't just whitewash it. So the Father Gil case is a really good example to me of Western cultural bias in UFO reporting, in UFO, both like how you take a report, but also how we view UFO cases. Here's the thing. How many witnesses? So let's just take Roswell.
Mhm.
Roswell, even at its best, actual witnesses who actually saw something, there aren't 26.
No.
There were once, but most of them have been whittled out. The Father Gil case has 26 witnesses on, not like for 5 seconds, not like for 10 seconds, but over a prolonged period of time, who see something really weird in the sky with humanoid figures. Do I think they saw space aliens from Zeta Reticuli? I don't know. Do I think it's a really good case? Yes, still today. Not fully, not explained as far as I can tell. But I don't know how many of you out there watching, and I assume that if you're on Ryan's podcast, you know something about UFOs and ufology. I hope you know about this case, but if you don't, it's not your fault. It's the fault of ufology, because when they have categorized and picked cases to put forward, why has this one, which is, I'll do the math in my head, 41, 24, 65 years old, why is this one not in the top like 10 or 20 that people talk about? And because most of ufology is American and Canadian and Western European and Australian and New Zealand, which is basically the old British Empire, and associated European allies and occasional enemies. Looking at you, Germany. Although all is forgiven. Is it? It's a good question. I don't know. It depends on who you ask. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
I'm not going to judge. But it's a Western thing. And there's a lot of really good cases that are out there from the rest of the world that are not talked about. Mm-hmm. And the Gil case, and I'll still call it the New Guinea case, is one that was talked about, but has largely been forgotten. And even no matter what you think of it, it's again, like the Hopkinsville Goblins case, still a really interesting part of the UFO story. And especially in the 1950s into the early 1960s, when UFOs were the rage, say the late 1940s to the mid 60s, late 60s, really, Condon Report. So the Gil case is right there for me for a whole host of reasons. It's actually a good case and an interesting case, and it kind of, look at all these people who saw something. But it's also good for me as a touchstone, as a cautionary tale for why those of us in the West, or the first world, or whatever we want to call it, sometimes need to just sort of pause and think about how we view the rest of the world around us. And sometimes not meaning to, but just the inherent cultural bias we have that, hey, our way of looking at things is better.
Yeah. It is a true global phenomenon with implication for everyone on the planet. So I have to agree with you. I have never covered that case on the show. And I am now a prime example of why and how it should be covered.
Shame on
exactly.
You. No, I'm just kidding. Hey, look, it's not my top 10 film.
Yeah.
By the way, that top 10 list was picked by ufologists, though. And I can tell you that the New Guinea case, the Father Gil case, while mentioned by one or two, was not on the vast majority of their lists.
Wow.
Wasn't there. Are the other 10 cases that much better that were on it? I don't think so, because I think at least a couple of them have been solved or debunked or whatever you want to call it. Whereas the Gil case, it is what it is. Yeah. You look at it and you can say either we believe these people or we don't. Yeah. And either they saw something strange, but it has not been satisfactorily explained to my reckoning, at least. And certainly Donald Menzel's, they were, savage natives and headhunters who, had a holy man tell them that space aliens were up there or whatever. I mean, come on, no, that's not an explanation.
It is not. Remains unexplained.
Indeed. It remains a UFO.
Yes, exactly. UAP, Paul. We're calling them that now. Did you know that? No, I'm kidding.
It remains a flying saucer.
Okay. I like
Stanton T. Friedman is real. Great film. But flying saucers are real too.
Yes.
And so I always love Stan because he still called them flying saucers.
Oh my God. I love that. I love it. All right. Let's move to number 3.
Roswell.
Okay.
Now, For anyone who knows me, did Paul just say Roswell?
He did.
Because I spent years feuding with Stan, not feuding, people thought we were feuding, no, but arguing with Stan, fair, about Roswell. I don't think Roswell was a crashed alien spacecraft. I think Roswell was Project Mogul. I accept the Project Mogul explanation, even though it has one or two flaws. The crash test dummies, I don't even think they needed to explain the bodies found, because the body stories trace back to Glenn Dennis generally. And Glenn Dennis was shown to be an unreliable, is the best way I can put it, witness. And by witness, I mean not witness, who jumped on the gravy train. I interviewed the man, and even at the time, I thought, Walter Haut was telling the truth as he knew it about issuing the press release and everything. Glenn Dennis was sitting there, and it was just like, I remember Glenn, like, they both did, but Dennis started. He's like, well, how much are we getting paid for this interview? And Stan looked at them, and I have it on video somewhere because we were recording at the time. He said, listen, I made you guys. There's no Roswell without me. And this documentary, these guys are filming about me. That's my nephew. They're good guys. Don't shake them down, for money. And it's just like, yeah, I was like, I don't pay interviewees. Like, that's not my practice.
No, that's very rare.
Yeah.
Actually.
So no. And Walter Haut, I think he was kind of half joking. Dennis was serious. And he said, well, Stan vouches for you, kind of thing. So, so why do I like Roswell?
Yeah.
Actually, I did pay one interviewee once. I won't tell you who it is.
Darn. We'll save that for Patreon.
Yeah, that could be on Patreon. I love Roswell, kind of for the same reason I love the Hopkinsville Goblins case, and for the same reason that while I hate them, I respect the New York Yankees. They're evil, but I respect them because it's so big. And as an historian, I look at Roswell and I go, anything that can change the course of any subject's trajectory, for good or ill, is something I like, even if I don't like it, if you know what I mean. So fascism and communism changed the course of the 20th century, of human history, both foul ideologies that caused an awful lot of deaths. I've studied them extensively as an historian because they are so epical, if you will, or change, like everything altered. Ufology is not world politics, and Roswell is not Nazi Germany or Stalin's Russia, but it is the Russian Revolution of ufology, where ufology was going along and doing its thing, and waves would come and go, and a few conspiracy stories here, a few conspiracy stories there, but a crash saucer every now and then, Aztec years before, boom, Roswell shows up, everything changes. Yeah. Culturally, socially, within ufology. Without ufology, there's no X-Files, there's no Dark Skies. Hey, Bryce Sable, there's no Dark Skies without Roswell. None of that exists. Yeah. Ufology, and maybe even our society, in a small way, would look a lot different if Stan Friedman hadn't tracked down Jesse Marcel and Mac Brazel and started the ball rolling. And then if he hadn't gotten sort of ripped off by Bill Moore and Charles Berlitz with the Roswell incident and denied it, but they wrote the book, and then others came in. Kevin Randall, good guy. Don Schmidt, not Kevin Randall. And all the ones that came after. Roswell is the 100,000-pound elephant in the room. Yep. It is changed so much through the conspiracy culture. And so we can see that even in our society today. If you think that ufology doesn't matter, it does a little. So you see all these people, and I'm not making a political judgment. There are conspiracy theorists on the left, but on the right, during the Trump years, the conspiracism has really anti-government, disbelief in the institutions, distrust of authority, all of that. Can that be traced solely to Roswell and UFOs? No. But is there a small part of it that the erosion of trust? Watergate is a much, much bigger thing. And the Vietnam War, and there's other things that are big. But every little bit counts, and Roswell's a piece of that puzzle too. The erosion of trust in government, because it was so big. The Air Force is forced to issue these reports. The crash test dummies one, I think, was cockamamie, but they didn't have to issue it. They were just trying to get this off their plate, sort of thing. And even the lies that were originally told. There's no question there was a cover-up in Roswell. If you think it was a cover-up of crashed alien spacecraft, or two, as Stan would tell you, great. I don't. But there was definitely a cover-up. And then that leads people like Nick Redfern to come up with his Japanese fugu balloons, war crimes experiments theory,
Yeah.
body snatchers in the desert, and all sorts of other things that come out too. So it's like a black hole for ufology, and ufology has been stuck in the event horizon. I hope I got my science right there, for like 50 years. Is it almost 50 years? 70? It's almost 50 years since the Roswell story started to gain some traction.
Really? Yeah.
And everything from Majestic 12 right up to Lou Elizondo and the current crowd all traces back to some degree to Roswell.
Mhm.
It doesn't trace back really to the New Guinea case. It doesn't trace back to the contactee movement, really. All the stuff that came before Roswell, it's like the New Testament of ufology. There was the Old Testament, and then Roswell is the Jesus of ufology.
You're right.
It showed up and said, there is a new word, and the word is Roswell, and everything that Roswell gives you. Crashed alien saucers, aliens that look like this, government cover-ups and conspiracies. Basically the plot of the X-Files for 9 seasons.
And what we're talking about in Congress up until a few weeks from now.
So you get good military. I think witness testimony is inherently difficult. I think military pilots generally are no better witnesses than anyone else. They're good at flying planes. They're not super trained observers in the way that people say. Fine. But they're still witnesses, and they're still probably pretty good ones. And I think most of them are pretty honest. So you get these cases that are out now where who knows what they saw.
Mhm.
But these are good witnesses. The problem is they get tainted by all this other stuff. And it's easy to, I mean, if I was running a disinfo campaign, Roswell would have been what I would have come up with, and then tacked on Majestic 12 at the end of it, because it just infects everything else. So I think, we need to data this up, or Jordy or Scotty, get somebody on the UFO Enterprise to get us out of that event horizon, and not only look at cases without thinking about conspiracies and cover-ups and cosmic Watergates. God knows I love Stan, but cosmic Watergates. Or what does Bassett call the truth embargo?
Truth embargo, yeah.
I mean, the government's not your friend. If you believe there's a truth embargo, they're not going to eventually go, you know what, God, we were wrong for 80 years.
Yeah.
Now we'll tell you.
Right.
So, I mean, like, these are all government people. Why are you trusting them?
All of a sudden, that's still that, what would you call that? Not a conundrum, but like that.
It is a complete disassociation.
Yeah.
Like the two things do not make sense. Government is bad. They've been lying to us for 80 years, and we can't trust them. Except for these guys who are telling us exactly what we want to hear,
yeah.
who used to be or maybe still are in government. And of course, they're working to get the truth out. Really? FYI, why don't they just tell you the truth? Like, if they know the truth, just tell you the truth. Steal the documents, do whatever. You're not going to go to jail. Like, if this is the biggest, I'm going on a little rant here.
Please.
Is that okay?
Please. I'm going to get off. No, I'm kidding.
So if I know where there's a football-sized spacecraft buried, and I believe that the secret of alien life visiting us, even existing in the universe, but certainly visiting us, is the most important thing, could change everything about humanity. Homelessness, gone. Poverty, gone. War, gone. We can all survive and live to be 200 years old. Yay. Love thy neighbor, and everybody gets really hot partners. Super. We're all going to have Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston bodies or whatever. I don't know what comes. But if you think that's the world that this information can bring you, and you know the truth about a giant football-sized alien spacecraft, or you want to weaponize your curiosity somehow and have the truth to release, you don't go, you know what, I'll do it next week. Or we need to have, we'll have congressional hearings first, and then we'll slowly release it. We have a dead man's trigger in case anything ever happens to us. We've got 5 people planted across. Just tell people. Just get out there and tell people. It's not hard. And let the chips fall where they may. Take them there. I will pay for Ryan Sprague and me, Paul Kimball, to fly to the site of the giant football stadium. We will come with a camera crew. You know who I'm talking about there, Coltart, or Elizondo, or whoever, Jeremy Corbell, whoever wants to take us there. I will fly us down with a camera crew, and I will film it. And I will guarantee you that will be on worldwide television, like within hours. Nobody's going to shoot us. I'll let people know I'm going. And, dead man trigger it. If Paul doesn't come back, well, aliens are real and there is a government cover up.
Yeah.
Like, don't hints and allegations only work for a Paul Simon song. They don't work in the real world. So I reject all of that stuff. It is all bullshit. And trace it all back to what Roswell created. And good people with good intentions, including Stan, including Kevin, helped build that. And then it got out of control. And that's where we are. And so that's why Roswell's on my list of favorite UFO cases, because it has to be.
Yeah.
Even though I think it brings evil like fascism and communism did. And it's just, we have to defeat it. If you are serious about whatever UFOs are, the mystery or space aliens or any of that stuff, even if you believe that aliens are here and they have a giant football-sized stadium, you should be calling this guy out who's telling you this every single day and saying, well, what the F don't you tell us where it is? Put it on a map, like Google Map that stuff and let me go there. And that's just the example that always sticks in my mind, folks. But the usual thing is we'll tell you next week on our podcast, or stay tuned. It's coming soon to be real. You've got the secret. Tell us. So the answers are in the New Guinea case and some of these other cases. Those are what we should be talking about, which is why the other two are pretty good cases, and I'll talk about them.
Okay. Cool.
Rant ended.
Okay.
And I just lost half your audience, and I'm sorry.
No.
I'm cranky.
No. This is why a podcast should exist. It's to question the things we're being told by people who refuse to give us the information but claim to have it. I have a Patreon. Mm-hmm. I give bonus content to people who are willing to help support my future endeavors with this show, to keep it growing, to keep it going. But I have never said, I know where that craft is, but if you join my Patreon, you can get the information. Mm-hmm. No, I say, hey, you want a bonus episode about a random case in South Africa or whatever? Like, join my Patreon. But I do agree with you. There is this tendency as of late, and it's been there in different iterations throughout the decades of ufology, of I know what's going on, you don't. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like not even a humble brag. It's just a cruel thing to do to a public who is supporting your work and listening to your shows and watching your interviews. Now, I'm not out to say that any of these people that we may be referring to have bad intentions. I think a lot of them firmly believe the information they're being told. Mm-hmm. That includes the people testifying in front of Congress. Mm-hmm. But it's just hard, Paul, because I find myself as a UFO podcaster and whatnot who tends to be on the fence a lot of the time. Stuck in the middle of things like this. I can go have a beer with Lou Elizondo, mm-hmm. or I can sit and talk to you.
You might not after this episode.
Yeah, right.
Look, I could have a beer with Lou Elizondo too. I could have a beer with anyone.
Yeah.
Except for maybe Ross Coulthard. But it's like most of the people you're talking about are fine, good people. But especially witnesses and stuff like the pilots and things like that.
For sure.
They talk about what they see. Some people, I think, get used and abused. I really don't know what to make of David Grush, for instance. But I think he has fallen in with the wrong crowd, shall we say. And maybe there's something there at a core. I don't know. But just some people make claims that are just so outrageous that put up or shut up.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this. So one last mini rant, very small rant. Bob Lazar. There's two, ufology has two Draculas. I used to think it was the Aztec case. I called it ufology's Dracula because it keeps getting resurrected. I helped resurrect it. I was like the idiot in Dracula 3. Oh, what if we take the stake out? Roar! So I made a film about Aztec and it rampaged the ufology for 2 or 3 years. It was a skeptical film, but still, once you pull the stake out, it's like you can't control where it goes. Nope. So I know whereof I speak because I was slightly guilty of it myself unintentionally. But Lazar is the other, for me, the monster or whatever, the Dracula that they keep pulling the stake out of. And so I remember we've talked about it. Ryan and I talked about UFOs and all sorts of stuff when we're driving around for the ghost hunting thing.
Oh yeah.
And this guy, folks, not just because he's my friend, you should listen to his podcast. Clearly, you are. This guy will give you the straight scoop, whether you agree with it or not. He's always honest, and it takes the middle of the road. It's cool. So after this episode where I rant about these people, he would probably happily have them on and say, "Well, you tell your side of the story.
Yeah,
that's a good thing, and tell us where that UFO is." But Jeremy Corbell and Stan Friedman sitting on the same stage. One of the worst things I've ever seen, the disrespect that Corbell showed Stan. And, basically you don't know what you're talking about. And Stan's like, well, can you explain to me why he said he went to MIT and he didn't go to MIT and blah, 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 blah. Stan debunked Lazar. And Corbell, like a dog with a bone, I'm just like, you know what? I know Stan Friedman, and you, sir, are no Stan Friedman. And to quote Lloyd Benson or paraphrase Lloyd Benson. And so when I see things like Lazar return and you get on these Corbell's show, first of all, I hate the term weaponize your curiosity. You shouldn't weaponize anything. Like, don't put that in the universe. But secondly, next week or like a month, or if you buy my film or anything like that. Yeah, Stan Stan sold stuff in his life, books and things like that. But you know what else Stan would do? You could call him at his home. That was a different time.
Yeah.
But Stan had a line. I know my aunt sort of hated it, but there were two phones in the house. There was the, hi, we're the Friedmans, and where are we having lunch? And there was the bat line, hi, Stan Friedman here. What do you got?
I called the bat line.
There you go. And you could call him. And Chris Ledger and Don Stiles, here's a segue for you. My next case is Shag Harbor. Chris Ledger and Don Stiles called Stan up and just, Stan talked about it in the top 10 film that I did about how he helped these guys. Stiles still talks about it. We were at the Shag Harbor con a month ago in Yarmouth, and Stiles consistently he said, Stan set us on our way. He was so generous and kind with his time. He gave us leads to follow, blah, 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 blah. Didn't hide anything from us. Stan would talk to anyone, anytime about anything.
Yes.
He would listen to anyone's story anytime about anything. As crazy as it seemed, I would see him at conferences and I'd go, Stan, what are you doing? And Stan would say, well, she bought a book. But, even if she didn't buy a book, you never know.
Yeah.
I contrast that with certain other people who, like the idea of Stan Friedman having a podcast where he, no offense to you, is just because you do a journalistic podcast, but one where you would dribble out the secrets and all that sort of stuff would be anathema to him. If Stan actually had the goods, I guarantee you, Stan would release the goods. If he knew where the spacecraft was, it's over there. If he knew, here's all the trove of documents, Chuck, here they are. It proves I'm right.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the old ufology, and Stan had his flaws. But the new ufology, let's just say I miss Stan. That's all I'll say.
I miss Stan.
And many of those who have followed in his footsteps, as we used to say in university, couldn't carry his jockstrap.
Yeah.
Much less his intellectual heft. So
Absolutely.
Even when he was wrong, he was more right than a lot of people today.
Amen to that.
Amen. Go Stan.
Go Stan.
So the Shag Harbor, so that's my rant, the Shag Harbor UFO case, which Ryan is doing a documentary on. I had nothing to do with it.
What?
Don't
say
I
that.
loaned you the camera crew. That was it. Is an awesome case. It is.
Yes.
People used to call Shag Harbor Canada's Roswell. Unfortunately, a little bit of that's true, because part of the problem with Roswell is there was a core, something happened, and a few good witnesses about something. And then all of a sudden there's hundreds of witnesses that are making stuff up or had nothing to do with it or jump on the gravy train, whatever. And Shag is starting to get some of that too, but nowhere near as bad. The core story of Shag Harbor, which happened in 1967, excuse me, so it's 57 years ago, I know, because I was born in 1967, is... So that's an easy one to remember until my mind
goes. You Superman? Did you crash in Shag Harbor?
I did. I crashed in Shag Harbor. No, nobody wants to see what's under the sweater.
Same here, brother.
My wife doesn't want to see what's under the sweater. It's like, no. So Shag Harbor is great. It's a pretty basic story at its core, at its Shag Harbor core. And I'm going to throw it over to you because you can talk about the Halifax core, because now you've been read into the secret.
Yeah.
Which isn't a secret. these guys driving around, young kids driving around in a car, see something flying overhead. So do other people in Shag Harbor, which is a really remote fishing community in Nova Scotia. They call the RCMP, for those of you not Canadian, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. They're the ones in the red coats who don't wear the red coats anymore. Haven't worn those in decades, except for ceremonial occasions. But they're the Mounties, Sergeant Preston of the Yukon kind of thing. And the Mounties show up, and people see stuff, and it's in the sky. And then it goes down, whether it crashes or lands in the water. It depends on how you want to view it. Floats in the water and then under the water, and then off it goes. Leaves a oobly, gelatinous kind of foam that glows in the water. Lori Wickens is the witness that I know personally. Dickie Wickens, as they call him down there. And I just call him Lori. And Ryan interviewed him. Lori, God love him. The accents are thick in Shag Harbor sometimes. And Lori is, if you've ever gone to Scotland and hit the Outer Isles, I mean, I lived there for a year. You live there now. Yeah. Sometimes the accents can be incomprehensible.
It's like
when
you're on another planet. Yeah.
Lori's is one of those. So my translation matrix with Lori is at about 85%, and I have to listen really carefully. I think Ryan's at about 60, maybe percent.
Maybe. I'm getting there. The more I come to Nova Scotia and go to Shag Harbor and talk to Lori, the more, you sort of start.
Then this guy over there who came down here and landed here, we were here by the phone booth and called the parade.
Do
whatever.
You think
I can't do it, but that's something like that.
That's pretty darn close. Would he be offended if we use subtitles?
Probably not. No.
Okay.
Because the truth is you might have to.
Yeah.
And that's fine. People speak in different dialects. We don't all speak in the Queen's English.
Oh, I'm sure people think that about our accents too in other countries. And
exactly.
Anyways,
sorry, the King's English. Here we were talking about Western cultural bias earlier. And even within the Western world, we have a bias towards people from small rural outpoor communities.
Yes.
I do not. I love them. That's where my relatives come from. Small town, Atlantic Canada. I just don't have the accent. I wish I did, because but Lori's is incomprehensible. But when he tells the story, his story has not changed in 57 years.
Nope.
No new additions like, when I came down the water and I saw an alien. Nope, nothing. Same story. Every time he tells it, boom. The core story of Shag has never changed. That kind of, I just gave you the bare bones lands. There's more to it, as you have discovered, which most people don't talk about. But there's also more on the front end. But there's also, before the incident in Shag Harbor, but there's also a lot more in the back end. And this is where I leave Shag Harbor and my friend Chris Stiles, because they've continued, and there's like the traveled underwater to an old Canadian Forces station off Sandy Point in Nova Scotia. It's up the coast. I shot a film there once because they turned it into soundstage. It was a top secret submarine detecting station during the Cold War.
Yeah.
So that's legit. It really was a base. Off the coast, American and Canadian forces came, divers went down. There's this other case that was a few years earlier. Then eventually another UFO joined it, and they traveled to the Gulf of Maine and flew up in the sky and bopped your uncle.
Yeah.
Chuck. Did any of that happen? I don't know. The evidence for that, to me, it reminds me of Roswell. Suddenly you got alien bodies. Like, just stick with the core case. Because in Shag Harbor's case, unlike Roswell, where you never actually saw something in the sky, in Shag Harbor, people did. It's actually a UFO. Roswell, it's just something is in the desert faux. Whereas in Shag, it's actually UFO. So you know what? Roswell is Canada, is the United States is Shag Harbor.
Right.
Except it's not, because it's not as good. So Shag's a great case for that reason alone. Solid witnesses, multiple witnesses, seeing things from different vantage points, reported to the police, absolutely investigated by the authorities here in Canada, the police, the military, no question about that. And their answer is, and I think this is a direct quote, folks, from the Canadian official report. I don't know. Something. Couldn't tell you. Like 57 years later, don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, if they had it, if it was a Soviet satellite that crashed or an American spy plane or something, whatever. Okay, it's been 57 years. The worst Air Force in the world has better tech than what was back then. It's like, you can release the secret. There's no reason to keep it.
Yeah.
They have not. There has not been an answer proffered, and people have asked. So the fact that they haven't doesn't mean it was space aliens, but it means, to me, they don't know what it was. So they're not going to make up an answer or try and fit one in like they did with the crash test dummies, even though they didn't need to in Roswell. They're just not. It's like, well, we don't know. We just don't know. Keep looking. If you find something, tell us, kind of thing. And to me, that's like, what does UFO mean, Ryan? What do the 3 letters stand for? Does it have the first one?
It does.
It's unidentified. 57 years later, it's still unidentified.
Mhm.
Does it have the second one?
Indeed.
It was flying. Checkaroo. And was it an object? Boom.
Yes, it
Yes,
was.
it was. So when you want to find the best UFO case in history, it's in rural Nova Scotia, down on the South Shore, at the very tip of the province, in a place called Shag Harbor. There's a U, there's an F, and there's an O. And there it is, Shag Harbor. And there's actually more at the front end of the case. Take it away, Ryan Sprague.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many witnesses, like you mentioned, too. Some of which you will see in my documentary. And the most important thing about this case, like you mentioned, is documentation. There's documents, official documents about this case. There's radar data. There's testimony from members of navies in Canada, in the U.S. This case has everything you could ever dream for, except an answer, which is, ufology in a nutshell. But what I'm doing with this documentary is trying to find those witnesses and triangulating, what happened, what did people see, what did people not see, and is there any truth to these new claims being made?
Think
the
about
case
things that
as well.
happened after whatever went into the water at Shag Harbor, everything after that.
Yeah.
Because Lori Wickens and the RCMP and those guys don't talk about anything after it really disappeared.
Right.
It's all stuff that happened afterwards. But so I discount that only because, not because it didn't happen, but because I have not seen the evidence yet that would satisfy me that that is compelling. Everything before that, though, is compelling and undisputed.
Yes.
Including my business partner. So,
Yes.
Ron Foley McDonald, who is the president, he's not even really my business partner. Technically, he's my boss, but a dear old
Mine
friend.
too.
Go back like 30 years in the music industry. Ron is 7 or 8 years older than me. He was 8. I think he was 8 years old, 7 or 8.
Yeah.
In 1967 when the Shag Harbor incident happened. Now you're thinking, and I would too, Spocko, would you think this? Yes, it would be logical at this point to assume, Captain, that this Ron Foley McDonald would have lived in Shag Harbor and witnessed it there. You're right, Spocko, and yet, not so much. Ron lived in Halifax. We are about, what is it, a 3-hour drive, 2.5 to 3 hour drive to Shag Harbor? Yeah. So Ron grew up here, just across the harbor from where we are. Ryan, you interviewed Ron in his house last week.
Yep.
Tell Ron's story in a nutshell.
Yeah, sure. So Ron, like you said, was 7 or 8 years old. He was outside with some friends. It was starting to get dark, so they're riding their bikes and whatnot. They're getting ready to go home, have dinner or whatnot. And all of a sudden, the friends hear something first, and it was a sound that Ron and he said his friends just could not describe. They had nothing to compare it to, just an unearthly sound, he said. And then what they saw was a massive light or lights streak right down their street at like the level of maybe let's say a 9 to 10 story building, low, very low, and head towards the harbor. And just the way Ron recounted this so many years later, I could tell it still affected him. Whatever it was that he saw that night of the Shag Harbor event was traumatic.
2.5 hours away from Shag Harbor, although it didn't take it that long to get down to Shag, but that's how far we are.
Yeah.
Reported in the newspapers in Halifax, and unlike the Roswell case, not retracted the next day or whatever, or changed. It's like, oh, suddenly it's a weather balloon. Nope. No explanation offered other than some continual reportage about the authorities are looking into this and taking it very seriously. We don't know what it is. So Ryan's going to try, the publisher of the local paper, the Halifax Herald, is still alive today.
Yeah.
And so Ryan's trying to track him down.
This is what you do. You try to get to the main sources of the case. And we've been very fortunate to get the primary witness, Lori, to get another brand new witness that's never come forward in Ron. We have
Chris Stiles is a witness, so you've talked to two. Chris observed, he lived in Dartmouth, which is the city across from Halifax, where I grew up. And why Chris is so fascinated by the Shag case is he saw it too.
He saw it too.
As Ron did, and then it continued on down until eventually it stopped at Shag Harbor.
Yeah. Well, and the other big fascinating thing about all this is we have worked with the people in Barrington in Nova Scotia, where we've gone to their museums and investigated paranormal activity there.
Mhm.
However, we have been speaking with an archivist at Barrington, Sam. She will be in the documentary. And what she was able to dig up astounded me. These were cases that had some striking similarities to the Shag Harbor event,
Mhm.
some 100 years earlier, even,
Yep.
which is crazy. There was another event in Barrington Harbor that was almost identical. Same yellow lights that went into the water and sort of floated there and then descended into the ocean. So I don't know if it has something to do with Nova Scotia or the harbors, but we are finding
We're special folks.
you are apparently, which is amazing. So to have all of these people, be so accessible, I truly think that maybe we won't answer what crashed in Shag Harbor, but we are going to bring it to the next level, as it were.
Seriously?
Seriously,
I love it. Sorry, we're making a good-natured fun of one of our fellow ghost investigators who says, I love it seriously at the next level.
We love you, Amy.
A lot. We love you, Amy.
If you're watching this for some reason, which I don't think you ever will.
Probably not. Well,
Yeah.
she might now. Amy Murphy.
If we tell her we mentioned her, she will listen.
It's true. She will. She'll tune in. So if you summon her, she will come.
Yeah,
So
like a Sasquatch.
like a blog squatch. I got to stop saying it. But that's what makes Shag so special.
Mhm.
Plus, I just like saying Shag. Plus, I also like to tell, if you took Shag Harbor and introduced it to Dildo, Newfoundland, because there is actually a small village in Newfoundland called Dildo, what would you get? And I think what you would get is a bog squatch.
Yes.
9 months later, you'd have a bog squatch.
Thank you for keeping it family friendly.
Family friendly. Wait, you said I could swear on this show,
I
but I can't
know,
talk about creating
I
a
know.
bog squatch?
I'm pretty sure this is the first time the word dildo has ever been used on Somewhere in the Skies.
And yet,
So,
we're just talking about a town
yeah.
named Dildo.
Get your minds out of the gutters, people.
It's like, you imagine like if Paul Weller, instead of a town called Malice, had written a town called Dildo.
Oh,
I'm not sure the jam would have been quite as popular.
I don't think so.
Anyway. Town
I
called
love it.
Dildo. Sorry, I'm going to be singing that the next time I hear the
Oh,
jam.
gosh.
Well, that's entertainment, folks. Sorry, totally jamming out. Don't want to yuck your jam there.
That's what you get here.
So Shag Harbor is my favorite UFO case. I think it's the best UFO case, tied maybe with the next one, because it is UFO. It's got multiple moving parts, multiple witnesses, all of whom are credible.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, 57 years later, it is still a U.
It's still a you.
Yeah.
All right, we've made it. Number 1. What is your favorite UFO case? Hey everyone, Ryan Sprague here, host of Somewhere in the Skies. If you've ever thought about supporting us, we have great 2 easy options for you right now. If you listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, you can click the subscribe button at the top of your Apple feed. Or you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/somewhereskies. Both of these options give you the same benefits: early access to the main show, bonus episodes and content, and priority to ask our guests your listener questions. So, to help support Somewhere in the Skies, click that subscribe button on Apple or visit patreon.com/somewhereskies. Thank you so much for your support, and keep looking up.
Ryan's going to cut half of this. I already know some of this
boy.
is good. This is a dead man's trigger. If Ryan cuts anything I've said, I have 5 people stationed around this country that will post it or something. I don't know.
There we go.
The RB-47 case from July 1957.
Oh,
it is the
okay.
number 1 case in my film, Best Evidence UFO Sightings, which you can buy on DVD, but I would tell you not to, because you can get it for free on multiple, including for people who pirated it. You pirates. But also from our distributors, which I think UFO TV and Paranormal Media, whatever in the US. It's up on YouTube.
Yeah, we'll find a
Feel
link.
free to watch it. It is the number 1 case. I will not describe the case because you can watch it in the film, and it literally tells you about the case. But in a nutshell, top-notch Americans, not top-notch, but a super secret American spy plane, electronic surveillance plane in the midst of the Cold War. The crew, top-notch crew, like these are the best of the best, pilots and highly secret clearances and everything. These guys know what they're doing. I mean, all pilots do, I hope.
Yeah, I would hope so.
Certainly the ones flying the planes I'm on. Unless it's a Boeing Max, in which case it doesn't matter who your pilot is when the door flies off.
I really hope I'm not on a Boeing tomorrow.
Yeah. I hope you're not either. Although I think you are. This might be the last episode.
Oh my God!
Somewhere in the skies.
Your new host. I hand it over.
Somewhere in the skies becomes somewhere in the ocean.
Oh my God!
It's funny because it's not true. It won't happen.
Somewhere in the shaggy dildo harbor.
I'm a Time Lord. I know he's already made it home to Edinburgh safely. But yeah, so they see this thing tracks them. It's observed by ground radar or tracked by ground radar, by the radar and the equipment on the plane. There's a visual sighting, blah, 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 blah. Now, the explanation offered by Project Blue Book was that it was a civilian airliner hundreds of miles away that they somehow, all of these military people mistook for like a UFO. Okay, thanks, Blue Book. But what makes it interesting to me, and again, watch the film, it's for free. It's like a 9-minute segment. You can skip to case number 1. Although Shag's in there too, so you can watch the bit on Shag, because Don Ledger, I think I interviewed him.
Oh, sweet.
So good bit there. Yeah. But why it interests me, I've always thought it's the best case, but it's not the only RB-47 case.
Really?
There's a guy in the film, you'll see him, he's recently passed away, sadly, Lieutenant Colonel Bruce Bailey, who became a friend of mine, nice guy, went to Texas to interview him. I was set up with him by a researcher named Brad Sparks, who was aware of him. And Brad was one of the foremost advocates of the RB-47 case. It's not a sexy case when there's no, I'm an alien and I'm abducting you or something. There's none of that. It's just a really good evidential case. So Brad loved cases like that. That's what he focused on. So it's kind of like the antidote to Roswell. Okay. When I say, hey, get rid of what Roswell was, you go back to cases like this. And when I'm interviewing Bailey, he wasn't on the plane, but he knew all the guys who were, because he had served with him. He said, yeah, Lewis Chase, these were guys who trained us. Mm-hmm. Provenzano, all those guys. These were the best of the best, and it was a shakedown mission for that particular plane. So they put the best crew they had, the all-star team, if you will. Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani on the same plane. Neither of whom had a good World Series, but one of them won. So, and then the camera's still rolling, and I go, whoa. Okay, thank you so much, sir. That was amazing. Like you just giving some details about these people, some colors, we say in the business. And yeah, wow. Well, the RB-47 case, great. He said, yeah, that wasn't the only RB-47 case. I had one of my own. And I went, the what now? Okay. Whoa. Brad, and even Brad didn't know about this. I went, you did? And he said, yeah. I said, do you mind talking about it on film? This is a guy who literally, I still have his book, wrote the history of the RB-47, a super secret spy plane. He wrote the history of this when he retired from the military. And so serious guy, although he had a pretty good sense of humor. He had a lovely steak too there. It was great. His wife was very nice. And he sort of went, yeah, no, I'll tell you. Keep the camera rolling. I can't do a Texas accent. I'm not even going to sound like Laurie Wickens here or the Penguin. Yeah, let me tell you. Yeah. So lovely guy. And he said during the Cuban Missile Crisis, they were flying down around Cuba on an actual mission, not a shakedown mission and he's in the film. He tells the story a lot better than I will with a Texas accent. And he says, case was, I can't do it. What's a Texas accent sound like? I'm going to offend all your Texan friends because he had a very thick one. Let me tell you about my case. Let me tell you about my case.
That sounded like Bill Clinton.
Yeah,
Bill Clinton a little bit.
Clinton ruined it for everybody. It's Arkansas accents for
We're so sorry. Guys.
Yeah, sorry. Anyway, so he says we're flying down there, and he didn't see it. He was a Raven, one of the electronic countermeasures officers stationed in the guts of the plane. But apparently the pilot saw it, a bright white light, similar to the 57 case. And he said, I think, check the film. It's been a while since I've watched it, but I think the story is we didn't get any signals bouncing back and forth like they did. It just wiped us out, took out everything we had. most sophisticated equipment the United States Air Force had at the time, or certainly like top 5 percentile. It just wiped us out. I do remember that quote. That's actually in the film where he says, it just wiped us out.
Oh my gosh.
And so it's kind of the RB-47 cases are my favorite cases. And he said, we went back and made our report and everything. And I asked him, I think this is in the film too. I said, well, what'd you think it was? And he said, non-identified flying object. Like, it was flying. It's unidentified. It was an object.
Love it.
And I said, well, what happened? He said, we were told not to talk about it. We were told not to, whatever. He said, it was, if you ever talked about any of these things that you reported, we were debriefed by military intelligence or whatever, AFOSI, whoever showed up. And, we were told, do not talk about this, blah, blah, blah. And if you ever talked about it, it was the easiest way to find yourself posted to Alaska. And I think that's a Louisiana accent. Sorry, but it's close to Texas. It's Texas adjacent, and he was dead serious and looked me in the eye. And then it's like, well, okay, thank you. And cut. And then we're like, hey, that was great. And he's like, yeah, I want to go get a steak. And it's like, yeah, awesome. Let's go. My camera guy, Finley Muir, and I went, and, we had a lovely steak. Great. And we became friends. We kept in touch until he passed away. I think it was last year. So that's the kind of thing about being a documentarian too. You think, all I'm going to go do is interview this guy about this case that's known. And then he's got his own case. And it's just like, oh, so there's not one RB-47, there's two. And while we were talking afterwards, he said, oh, there's more than two. People reported this stuff all the time. This stuff happened all the time.
What?
It's like, and everybody was told, so if you want to think conspiracy, there is a cosmic Watergate or a truth embargo, whatever that means. It doesn't mean space aliens, but it does mean that I have talked to, and I name them, unlike some of these people out there. Bruce Bailey. Sadly, you can't talk to him anymore unless you're a ghost hunter, unfortunately. But he's in my film. I interviewed him, I put him on camera, and I put it in a film that you could watch for free on Canadian television, TVNZ, and now everywhere across the world. Here's his story. And that's the talking about these other guys in their case that he knew, but then his own case that he hadn't told anybody before. And sometimes that's just like what you get. You start here, and then this other thing unfurls over here from a very credible witness who was one of the best that the U.S. Air Force had to offer, flying a plane that defended us. We Canadians are free riders on the American umbrella of defense. Defended us during the Cold War when we were staring, eyeball to eyeball with the Soviets. So that is still. I love Shag. It is now tied with the RB-47 case. Those two cases are great evidential cases. And they have little spin-off things. The spin-off for the RB-47 case is even better because, Bailey had his own case, and he was willing to hook me up with a couple of other. He said, well, you can talk to this guy. And this guy said, no, I can't. I like small budget Canadian documentary, like we don't have $1 million US budget. I thank you. 2 is enough. But, and that was the last UFO film I ever made. So I never really followed up. On some of the other things, but I talked to him, and he always stood by that. He said, "Yeah, you treated me fairly. About somebody wants to ask me about that case, I'll now talk about it anyway." And as far as I know, nobody ever followed up with him. No other UFO film, no other UFO producers or ufologists or anybody, to the best of my knowledge, despite my film airing on Canadian television, airing on around the world. I premiered it at the X conference, Steve Bassett's X conference in 2008, I guess it was. It aired in a couple other UFO conferences. People were aware of Bailey's story, and to the best of my knowledge, nobody else ever went and talked to him about it. Why? Because there's no space aliens. There's no sexy answer. It's just, here's a credible guy telling you it knocked us out.
Yeah.
And they said we'd go to Alaska if we ever talked about it. I don't need a giant football-sized arena-sized spacecraft sitting somewhere, we can't tell you about. Here's this guy telling you about this, and he'll tell you and you and you and you and you if anybody had ever followed up. They didn't. So those cases are out there, and that's why, going back to my previous rant, I really dislike, and it's why I left ufology too. It was full of these guys. I dislike all the guys who muddy that stuff up, because I want to talk to Bruce Bailey. And I want to talk to Lori Wickens, and I want to hear from them, and David Fravor, and I always forget the other pilot, the one
Alex Dietrich.
Yes, Alex Dietrich. If I was still in the biz, I'd talk to those people. Give me those guys. Give me those women. Fishermen, pilots. I don't think an Air Force pilot is any better observer necessarily than Lori Wickens looking at that coming down. I want to talk to Father Gil. And then I want to talk to the other 25 people who were there. And I'll take their stories seriously. And I'll put it into the stew and see what we come up with, which is what we do in the ghost hunting show.
Yeah.
Like there were 7 or 8 members of the team, and sometimes the camera guys we called in, and it's like, okay, different things happening to different people. High strangeness. That's great stuff. And that's why the UFO mystery, and it is still a mystery, is an enduring one, and why it still resonates with me, even though I don't make films about it anymore, and I don't do a blog about it, and I don't write about it or anything. But occasionally for dear friends, I'll pop on it, pop off. But also tell you, why so serious, Paul? I'm not. I'm a crazy dude. But there's serious stuff out there. And yeah, Congress should look into it. I can tell you who they should talk to. If he was still alive, start with Bruce Bailey. But haul Lori Wickens down if you want. Or the Canadian Parliament could haul Lori in with a translator. And, I love Lori. But, tell his story. Like these are, and this is what Studs Terkel, famous historian in the United States, would do. Helen Creighton here, folklorist, oral research methodology, oral histories. People discount, you always hear the debunkers go, witnesses, they're unreliable and stuff. Yeah, to some degree they are. People's perceptions can be flawed.
Yeah.
But if you get multiple witnesses telling you the same story, there are better witnesses cases than others. If you get ground radar and plane radar with the RB-47 tracking and then other planes, it happens to them too. Cool. Lots of stuff going on there. Lori Wickens, not the only witness. Lori and all these other guys. And there are really good cases out there. There are really fun cases too, like the Hopkinsville Goblin. Ufology has both. Those are the ones that I wish people would talk about, and they would, stop talking about all the other stuff that I hated 20 years ago and I hate even more now.
I do not blame you. Okay. To sort of wrap things up then, Paul, all right. Yeah.
You've just gone straight to the wrap up, haven't you?
Yeah.
He's cut everything from Ghost to sort of wrap things up.
Yeah. It's going to be the most heavily edited episode.
I'm
not editing. I'm editing none of this.
It's all my fault.
Yeah.
He doesn't necessarily agree with me on any of this stuff.
The views expressed by our guests are not necessarily those of Ryan Sprague, but a lot of them are. So I'm going to do kind of I don't want to call it a negative question. And then I'm going to end with a really positive question.
I just did tons of negative stuff.
No.
You go for it.
Okay.
Whatever you want.
We did your top 5 favorite cases. What is your least favorite UFO case of all time?
The same 5.
The same 5?
I'm just kidding. Roswell.
Okay.
It can be, it's like one of those things where it's the best in the world. It's the best of times. It's the blurst of times, or whatever the Simpsons said.
Okay.
I can't talk about specific cases. I'll just tell you anything to do with Bob Lazar. Anything that Jaime Maussan has ever touched with a 10-foot pole. So the Jonathan Reed case really resonates with me. Just like, look it up, folks. There's bad people doing bad things out there. I don't know how people fall for it. I'm not a huge fan anymore of the Rendlesham case. I don't completely discount it, but my problem with Rendlesham is, and by the way, you should go to the Rendlesham Trail. The UFO Trail is one of my 7 ufological wonders of the world. It's fun.
I got to get there.
And it's a nice part of the country, and you can get some really good pasties and stuff. The stories of, so it's weird. I'm betwixt and between Burroughs and Peniston, right? One of them worse than the other, worse in a sense. Like Larry Warren. Okay, so Larry Warren, you can completely discount. But Burroughs and Peniston, the 2 prime witnesses, Hall sort of a secondary adjunct witness. Over the years, their stories have significantly changed and been enhanced, shall we say. There's 2 ways to look at that. One way is bullshit. Like, these are guys who, people have stopped listening to the original story, so you have to make the story a little better so that they'll keep listening to you.
Happens all the time.
Really does happen. My gut reaction is, yeah, it's always that. However, I am a older, wiser, humbler UFO Jedi than I was 20 years ago when I was full of piss and vinegar. So the other possibility is they really did encounter something that was so effing weird and so paradigm changing a word I hate to use. So life altering, that maybe it took them 20, 30, 40 years to really get their minds around it.
Hmm.
And so I'm not a particularly religious person, but my grandfather was a Reformed Baptist minister. I did my work in my master's work, never finished my thesis, so I can't say I have a master's degree, but I have 99% of one, was on evangelical religion in the Atlantic provinces in the late 17th, early 18th century. So I'm well familiar with with religion, even though I'm not particularly religious. All of human culture and society is kind of built on religion, whether it's Judaism, Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, whatever. All of those religions at one point or another are kind of supernatural and paranormal. They are. All of them generally have a figure like Muhammad or Paul on the road to Damascus, Saul, sorry, on the road to Damascus. Then he changed his name to the good one, Paul, who have these experiences that change them. Like Saul is a perfect example, from being a Roman tax collector to the foremost apostle that kind of built the Christian church.
Yeah.
Who wasn't even there when Jesus was around. He's not one of the original, but he thinks he saw him in the desert, kind of thing. If you see something that is so life-altering that you can build an entire religion around that, and it can grow long after Paul died, but it can grow out of that. I'm not saying Peniston and Burroughs are Saul on the road to Damascus. I'm just saying, we should expect witnesses to high strangeness events to have their view of the world altered, to be confused by what they saw, if it's truly strange. If you're Fravor flying in a plane, no offense to David Fravor or Alex Dietrich, and you see something, okay, that could be really weird and interesting. But if you're up close and personal to something that happens, which Peniston and Burroughs, whether you believe them or not, that's their testimony. I think touched the object and all that sort of stuff. I mean, I would like to think it would take me about 40 years to process that too. And you might process it until the day you die, and you might never be able to process it. So one of two things is true about Rendlesham. Either Burroughs and Peniston are flat out liars, or Burroughs and Peniston ran into something that was so weird that it has taken them so long to process, and they're still processing it. And I honestly don't know which is true. I don't. So Rendlesham, I know we had been talking about this earlier. Rendlesham is one of those weird cases where Laurie Wickens, I know what Laurie Wickens saw. Like Burroughs and Peniston, I don't know. And ufology is full of cases like that too, where people describe something so weird, like the Stephen Michalek case in Canada, the Falcon Lake case in Manitoba. You either believe him or you don't believe him, because what he described happening to him and what some of the evidence is so freaking weird. Like, what do you make of that? And we should expect cases like that. And ghost hunting has turned me into a better Obi Paul than I used to be, because when you, as I have, run into things that are so freaking weird that I can't explain them, and the people around me can't explain them, it makes me reevaluate a little bit how I maybe used to treat contactees, actually a lot, and witnesses. So Rendlesham, it's in my, as Stan would say, it's in my gray basket. Whereas Shag Harbor and RB-47 are in my basket, I guess, of great UFO cases. But yeah, just like weird shit's gone down on 13 Seasons of Haunted, and I've been there for pretty much all of it. And some of it, like a big, I'll tell this one. Can I tell one haunted story to give context? Yeah. So there's me. Hi. And there's Holly Stevens. Hello. And we've been together doing this. She will continue on for like 15 years, ghost cases years ago, and then haunted. We were the OGs. And so we know each other pretty well, and we trust each other, blah, blah, blah. So Holly's doing an Estes method thing, which means you get the headphones on. She's at one end of this room in the Seaview Heritage Center, which is a local kind of community center in Clark's Harbor, not far from Shag Harbor, actually. And I'm at the other end of the room. I can see Holly, and she can see me. And long story short, she's getting words out. I think we're talking to this guy. It's a museum now. They have this exhibit about a barber, Albert the Barber, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. The word blue comes out a couple of times. The sign for Albert the Barber is blue. So I'm thinking, I should look at the sign, yada, yada, yada. Anyway, finish. Pretty interesting. Pretty cool stuff going on. Some really interesting things came through that lined up with where I was. She couldn't hear me, etc. Hey, Holly, how's it going? Yeah, pretty good, Paul. Yeah, that was a pretty freaking cool segment. Yeah, lots of stuff came out. What did? Oh, it matched up. Oh, all right. Well, I'm gonna go see what else is happening, but I gotta go use the can here first. Okay, you do that. And so I walk around the corner, and she had been sitting here, and the bathroom's down here. She could see the bathroom, and there's this big blue bookcase. And I what the? And it's blocking the door to the bathroom. It's moved out from the wall, and it's blocking the door to the bathroom. So I'll bring Holly back here. Holly, yeah, Paul. Did you move this? No, I was sitting down. Why would I move it? There's nobody, by the way, over there. Ryan,
No, we
everybody
were
else
all
were upstairs.
2 levels up.
And I went, what the? And she's like, what the? And so we said, well, it's got wheels. Now the floor is flat, but we're thinking, I don't know, maybe a mouse came through and like super mouse and pushed it. Surely this thing is not hard to push. Maybe it just rolls all the time. Now, one of the stories in that building is that stuff moves.
Mhm.
Like, I'm not the strongest person on the planet, folks. My shoulders hurt. It's a long story because I'm old. But I go, okay, I'll just move. Holy. You're like, "Arr!"
Yeah.
Holly, help me. Yeah, okay. You weak little. Oh my God, this is actually kind of heavy. And when you move it, it makes like the
It was
wheels
loud.
squeak and everything. Like,
Yeah.
when we slam it back into the wall, and it's like, and then we have to move it down a bit because it's moved out and in. It's like, what the? That was it. That was there, right? And she went, oh yeah, that was there when we started. I went, yeah, that was there. Okay, well, let's see what it would have sounded and felt like to actually move out to where it was. And we're like, just squeak, and makes a thudding sound. And we just stand there and we go, that was against the wall. You were in a chair. I could see you the whole time.
Yeah.
You could see if you had looked up. When Holly does that, so she's off to be like this, so she wasn't looking. But there's no way to get over there. Everybody else, the building was locked. There's no explanation for how and why that happened. And yet that thing moved, and I didn't hear it. I certainly would have heard it. She didn't see it. And it was only when I then went to use the bathroom, or the can, as I said, that I went, whoa, like what? And everybody else was upstairs. So that there is what Jacques Vallée would call some high strangeness. That's as close to a Texas accent.
I was just going to say, and that's a Texas accent.
I finally, that there is close to what we call a Texas sandwich. No, high strangeness case.
You just got to do it with Jacques Vallée.
I know, with Jacques Vallée.
Yeah.
Jacques, that there's what we call a high strangeness case. And yeah, like that changes the way you look and think about
Absolutely.
things when you see stuff like that happen. And that's not the only time it's happened, even just in this season.
No.
These guys had books. I wasn't there, but they had books thrown at them.
Like
Thrown.
Ghostbuster style. It was crazy.
Poltergeist books thrown at them.
Yeah.
In a town called Parsboro, Nova Scotia, in a post office. And we tried to replicate it by pushing, even throwing. And nope, the books always landed here for us and way out there for them. And they were all freaked out. And it's the one time I didn't see the poltergeist activity. When you see stuff like that happen, even the blue light on top of the mannequin, you just go, you know what? Goblins and what else do I have on my list? Shag Harbor and all this stuff. Pretty weird, which makes Roswell look like the least weird case of all of them. Honestly.
Right.
Just something landed in the desert.
Yeah.
I think it was Project Mogul, but whatever you think it was, all this other stuff, super weird, like blowing out ECMs and RB-47s and bubbling lights in Shag Harbor and people seeing it 2.5 hours away in Halifax, and Father Gil and his 25 friends, none of whose names are in any of the reports, unfortunately, but the New Guinea case, all these people seeing with humanoids and stuff, and even goblins in Kentucky. So those, I prefer to accentuate the positive. But negative, any huckster, any UFO huckster at all who's selling you a bill of goods, those are the people.
As they say in the wrestling
the wrestling business. Yeah.
We're doing an X for those just listening.
They have injured ufology.
Yes.
Get them out of the ring.
Permanent injury.
They are somewhere in the ring and they need to be taken out of the ring.
Yep.
See what I did there?
Good call. Check out somewhereinthering.com.
Featuring Hornswoggle. WWE's Hornswoggle this week.
We had Hornswoggle
We
this
tag teamed on Hornswoggle.
The world is a strange place, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
To end this conversation, I thought it would be good to reflect No, I'm not. I'm not singing. You can
Oh,
sing if you
okay.
want. No, these people do not
Can
want
I
me
give
to
my
sing.
answer in song?
Oh man, we will have. Maybe we'll do a musical episode.
This interview has gone on so long.
It really has. Oh my gosh, we're going on 2 hours. Okay,
Sweet.
last question.
Last question.
I've been in ufology for a while now. I am no longer one of the youngest UFO researchers, which is depressing, but also exciting. There's a lot of new people getting involved, younger people, and God bless them.
Mhm.
I'm trying to help them as much as I can. You have helped me so much throughout the years in ufology, along with my mentor, Peter Robbins, and others like you and Greg Bishop and Tim Banal and Micah Hanks. And, we have all these friends that we make through this one topic,
Mhm.
UFOs.
Mhm.
I probably never would have met you. I probably wouldn't be on a ghost show right now had we not had
True.
UFOs in common. So my big question for you is, throughout all the years that you were in ufology and going to conferences and making documentaries and doing all this, what's like the one memory that really stands out for you that you're like, wow,
I can't talk
that
about.
happened? Oh, you
I
can't.
can't talk
okay.
about her. No, I'm just sorry.
Scandalous.
That is it's an inside joke. Car conversation.
Yes.
What's the one memory that stands out for
Yeah,
me?
what really like that brings you back to like, wow, we had some good days. We had some good days in ufology because they're few far in between. I'll tell you that much.
You know what? Fine. I've spent 20 years bashing Stephen Greer, and I will spend the next 20 years bashing what Stephen Greer represents. But I'll give the man his flowers. Here you go. I
Okay.
tell this story about Greer all the time. So we were doing the Stanton Friedman film, and it was 2001 in Irvine, California. It was a MUFON symposium. And I basically interviewed everybody. And I had no idea who Greer was. Like I knew Stan's version of ufology. I'd gone to his lectures because he's my uncle. But I didn't really know much about ufology. Other than what I knew from Stan, and in my own interest. So Greer was kind of ascending at the time. He was the big new thing. He wasn't completely new, but he was the star. Even the panel at that conference had Bud Hopkins. Whatever you think of any of these people, like these were UFO stars. Bud Hopkins, John Mack, Robert Wood, the Majestic 12 guy.
Oh yeah.
Stan Friedman. Ann Druffel, longtime NICAP researcher, I guess, and wrote the biography of Jim McDonnell.
Shout out.
Danny Sheehan, Daniel Sheehan, who remains on the fringes of ufology, and Stephen Greer. And Stephen Greer by far was the star of what was happening in 2001. So Barry Downing, too, wrote Bible and Flying Saucers. You should read it, folks. Good book by a nice man. And so I said, oh, Dr. Greer, could we interview you? We're doing this film. You talk about Stan Friedman and what he means to you, blah, blah, blah. And Greer's like, yeah, okay, sure. Man never turns down an interview as far as I know. So we're interviewing everybody in a hotel room. And we're just basically, we've been talking about this. You hate how you interview everybody in a hotel room, but that's what we had.
Yeah.
And so what we would do is, they'd be in front of the curtains and we just changed the color of the lights. So not Bruce Maccabee, Rob Swiatek from Foo4 got purple, Barry Downing got blue, whatever. But you only have so many colors of the spectrum. So by the time Greer finally is getting ready to come up, we have one left. Now, do you want to guess what color that was?
I'm going to say...
If you were to pick a color
that
would be seen maybe as making fun of somebody in ufology, what color do you think it would be?
Little green men.
Yeah, we had green.
Okay.
It was a very bright green.
Okay.
And I didn't think twice about it. My DOP didn't think twice about it. We just stuck the green up. It's like, that's what we got left. We don't want to reuse these colors. And Greer's assistant, guy by the name of Jordan Pierce or Peace.
Oh, yeah. I know Jordan. Yeah.
Came in, and I've never talked to him since. So he could be a lovely guy. I don't know. But he wasn't a lovely guy on that day. He walks in, he's got a clipboard. Oh, yes, Dr. Greer will be right up. And he looks at, oh my, no, green. No, that will not do. That will not do. Dr. Greer, oh my goodness, Dr. Greer, you are trying to make Dr. Greer look foolish. You will have to use a different color. I'm like, okay, I guess I get your point. Totally, absolutely. Like, we will reuse the purple or blue or what color works for you. We can mix and match. Greer walks in, and I turn to him, and I know nothing about this guy other than he's a big time UFO guy. And I go, Dr. Greer, I'm so sorry. We didn't think. We have green up. We'll take it out. Take us about 10 minutes, and Bob's your uncle will put blue or some other color in. And your assistant has totally briefed us on this, and we did not mean any offense, because I'm a polite Canadian. And Greer just looks at me and he's like, well, I can't do his accent either, well, that's fine, in his North or South Carolina accent. It's no problem at all. Let's just get this rolling. It doesn't bother me in the least. And no worries, son. And he sits down, and Pierce, whatever his name is, like, he's there apoplectic. He's like, tossing his clipboard, and he's like, I'm trying to save you, Dr. Greer. These people are evil. And I'm like, and Greer's just the friendliest guy in there. I was like, oh, well, are you sure? And he's like, oh, of course not. We got lots to talk about. I'm like, okay, great. Let's roll it up. Super polite. Absolutely. That's my memory that I have of ufology. My first time out filming Stephen Greer, who I hate everything he represents, but he was very polite to me 23 years ago. His people, not so much. And forget Jordan. He's just doing his job, whatever. But we were filming, and we had permission. The next day, Greer did his speech, and like 900 people or something in the audience. We had permission from MUFON and Greer to film him. Yeah. And Jan Harson was the head of MUFON, running the symposium at the time. And look it up, folks. So,
or don't, if you want,
or don't. You can find it on whatever your criminal law network
not ruin your night. Yeah.
No, but that's the part of ufology I hate the most. I remember I had a handheld, so the main camera was up on a platform. They were very nice. They gave us a table or something, so Finley's, and I took a handheld, and I was filming Greer kind of from the side, and I was assaulted. Criminally assaulted by two of Greer's goons. And they, I don't even know they're there, but these two guys come up. One of them pushes me, and the other one grabs my arm and yanks my arm down like this. And the camera hits, well, I'm not going to stand, but hits about here. And I'm not the best lawyer in the world, folks. In fact, I never actually really practiced law except for 12 days, but I did specialize in criminal law, and I know what assault is, and that was assault. And they're like, you cannot film Dr. Greer, and you cannot film out in the crowd, because I was getting a few crowd shots. Had permission to do this, right. By the way. Had talked about it. It's like, what? No. And I'm trying to whisper because Greer's still speaking, and people in this part of the arena notice us, but everybody else in the hall have not noticed it. But 30 people are starting to realize there's a bit of a kerfuffle here. My guys see this, and I can see they're starting to get ready to come over, and okay, I'm just because I'm a happy Canadian, folks. I'm a Jedi. I'm trying to diffuse this. Listen, there's been a misunderstanding. We have permission. I've talked to Dr. Greer about this. Can't do this. And the guy yells at me as he's still gripping my arm. He left a mark on my arm. He goes, "You are making a lot of people uncomfortable right now." And I just looked at him and I said, "No, you're making a lot of people uncomfortable right now, including me." And I yanked my arm away and said, "You're getting charged. I'm calling the cops if you touch me again." Yeah. Now half the audience knows. And finally Greer notices, and he just looks over and he goes like this. And the two guys, "Yes, sir. The guru has spoken." And they fade away.
Good Lord.
And I'm just standing there going, my arm really hurts. That hurt. And, Greer doesn't miss a beat. He goes right back. He doesn't even mention, but he just looked over and he went like this. And I'm like, okay. But these two guys, that is the dark side of ufology. The upside was Greer being friendly to me. The dark side is those guys, there are
minions.
People, the minions, the Jordan Peterson now worshiping incels in their basement or whatever. Those people exist too, and they're dangerous, and they proliferated. So when you ask me what the worst part is, that's my worst memory from ufology, is getting physically assaulted at the same conference, where I have a pleasant memory of Dr. Greer being a congenial fellow who wasn't worried about the green background. Yeah, he understood. So yin and yang within one conference. Mm-hmm. Although as we mentioned, somebody else, there's another yang in there somewhere too. There's a lot of threads that came out. I don't know what to tell you, folks. Ufology's got a lot of disreputable people. A lot of neo-Nazis and anti-Semites have been in ufology for years. Ernst Zundel, a famous Canadian anti-Semite, he began with UFOs, started writing about UFOs in Antarctica, because he basically thought, if anybody's dumb enough to believe this, we can get them to believe that Hitler was right. And eventually Canada deported him because he was a Holocaust denier, and he was like a terrible human being. So, and the Germans didn't want to take him. But eventually, I guess they did. So, like, there's all of these elements within the conspiracy subculture, ufology, all this stuff, which is why when you ask me what my best moment is, actually, it's not Dr. Groots. I remember that one. It's Bruce Bailey sitting in this very nice former lieutenant colonel's Texas home, Texas hospitality, and getting a UFO story sprung on me.
Yeah.
It's talking to Lori Wickens at conferences and stuff and having fun with Lori Wickens. It's meeting Mac Tonys and Greg Bishop and Nick Redfern and you and Micah Hanks and all those people that I like. That's the good stuff.
Yeah.
And it's it's the mystery of it all. That's all the good stuff. The bad stuff, I've just scratched the surface of the bad stuff. Ignore all that. People, friends, and mystery. That's the part of ufology and the UFO mystery that I would tell people is why it still interests me, even though I don't produce films about it anymore. And why it is when people say, why did you go from UFOs to ghosts? Why did you change? I just shrug. Yeah, about the money and yeah, about all that other stuff. But I go, I didn't really go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of the same mystery to me, which are things that we can't explain. And so I don't know what they are, where they come from. I just like the mystery.
I love it too, man. We live in that mystery every single day. And it's exciting.
I don't know where Spock went.
I don't
know if he's teleported to a different planet.
He's retired for the night.
He's retired for the night. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, I can't believe I'm bringing up this reference, but Kevin Smith.
Wasn't that the end?
Yeah, pretty much.
Sorry.
It was a good way to end it.
Oh.
He often talks about comic books, and he always says life happens between the panels.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like that. Like it's not about this person speaking at the UFO conference or this person in this documentary or this one single case, but it's what happens in between those moments, whether it's on UFO Twitter or just a conversation like you and I are having right now. Those are the moments I cherish and treasure in this thing called ufology.
Somewhere in the office.
Yeah.
We're my office.
Somewhere in the beautiful office.
Too many people think ufology or any of this paranormal stuff is like rock and roll.
Yeah.
No. Well, okay. Heavy metal, frankly. Nothing wrong with heavy metal. The truth is, it's jazz.
Yeah.
And the music is as much to go from where you are there. It's not just the notes you play, it's the notes that you don't play. And it's the spaces between the notes.
Mm.
And so it's the most mysterious of musical forms to me and the most intriguing, frankly. And I'm an old rock and roller. So rock's great. Blues is great. I love class. I love it all. But jazz is the freaky one that it's just like, the message is sometimes hidden, not in the notes, but in what you choose not to play or what you don't see or hear. And that's what ghosties are. That's what UFOs are. That's what bog squatch is. The legend of the Briar Island bog squatch, as not just told, but created by Ryan Sprague and Paul Kimball, somewhere in the bog.
You have only begun to learn about bog squatch, guys. Get ready.
T-shirts coming soon.
We
are totally going to weaponize, monetize everything about this with a smile on our face and a PayPal account or whatever we make our money off of.
Yeah. Oh, man. Awesome, Paul. Well, we're going on 2 hours, buddy. So we will close it up because we have pizza to eat, WWE SmackDown to watch, and then I'm heading home tomorrow to Scotland.
Sadly,
I will already be there by the time you guys hear this. But
true.
I know, but it's been a pleasure.
For the parts of it that you leave in.
Yeah.
So Sassy's Pizza tonight in Cole Harbor. Big thumbs up from us. Sassy's
so good.
2-for-1 pizza.
So good. We're going back.
We are. We played the Pizza Hunt, and you just go. So the Pizza Hunt, really quickly, folks, is you get in a car, you go throughout your town, and you just pick a neighborhood, and the first pizzeria you see that you've never been to that isn't a chain like Pizza Hut or whatever, you go and you order pizza from them, just at random.
Yeah.
And it could be good, could be bad.
There's no such roulette.
thing. Yeah, it's pizza roulette. That's it. There's no such thing as bad pizza, but it could be less good pizza.
Right.
And we found this place, Sassy's Pizza, and it's really good. So we're getting that tonight. We're watching WWE SmackDown. We'll be somewhere in the ring with Ryan Sprague later tonight and Hornswoggle. And then Ryan will be on a plane tomorrow.
Yeah.
Leaving on a jet plane, and I am sad to see him go. But he's coming back for more Haunted. So he'll be back somewhere in Nova Scotia in March, probably of 2025.
You heard it here first, guys. Season 14 of Haunted. Check out Haunted if you live in Canada. It is airing right now on Eastlink. You can check out, like Paul said, the first 4 seasons right now on YouTube as well. So please go, click, like, leave us your comments on how you think the paranormal investigations went. And yeah, I'm looking forward to doing that. But Paul, I'm going to leave us with the slogan we do every week here, and that is keep your feet on the ground, but never stop searching.
Somewhere. What is it? Oh, shoot. Somewhere in the skies.
Nailed it. Thanks, Paul.
Somewhere in the Skies podcast is part of the LIONSGATE Sound Network. Please take a moment to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever possible. Thank you for listening.